Karena memang kami sadari anggota kami itu kalau bahasa guyonan kita itu bukan orang yang sering kepentok tiang masjid gitu.
We are fully aware that our members are those who are not coming to masjid often. We joke that our members are not those who got hit by the pillar of the mosque very often.
Hello and welcome to On the Level. I'm Jeff Hutton. We're going to dive a little deeper into the world of Indonesia's hardline groups. And I know that we covered this just a couple of weeks ago with my interview with Professor Ian Wilson at Murdoch University in Western Australia, but there's been a development here that's taken a lot of people by surprise. Earlier in September, Indonesia's National Police Force said it would deputize certain street-level organizations to expand the reach of the police and enforce social distancing and closures of non-essential businesses to help stem the spread of the coronavirus, which causes COVID-19. These mass organizations are basically protection rackets, and they're populated with local toughs that are called Preman. Now, you call a Preman to collect debts, to provide security for a nightclub maybe, or to organize a protest or to shut one down, depending on what you need. Preman were key to keeping plantation workers in check during Dutch colonial times, and more recently, anyone opening a factory or a mine or a restaurant has probably needed to get the green light from a local Preman, insisting you either hire their guys or use their services, or, of course, pay protection money. And if they sound like thugs, you're right. But in a place where the courts and the police are out of reach for the little guy, and jobs and property rights are scarce, Preman provide at least a faint prospect of some security and recourse. They do the dirty work, and in Jakarta, there's a lot of dirty work. Well, today we talked to Kyai Luthfi Hakim. He's the chairman of the Forum Betawi Rempug, the FBR. Pak Luthfi is a Kyai, it means he's an Islamic scholar, and he believes his people, the ethnic Betawi of Jakarta, are under siege by unsavory forces of modernity and urbanization that's divvied up Jakarta's resources and land to too many outsiders. The FBR's mission is to stop that, and if it means relying on a few bad apples whom he rarely sees at masjid or the mosque, then so be it. That's according to Kyai Luthfi. Kyai Luthfi was very generous with his time, and while he was under no illusion of how I viewed his organization, I came away more convinced than ever that because of Indonesia's woeful criminal justice system and poor governance, if groups like the FBR didn't exist, they would probably need to be invented. Here's Kyai Luthfi. Kyai Luthfi, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really happy to be speaking with you.
Ya, sama-sama. Saya juga sangat senang sekali bisa berkenalan dengan Anda.
Pak, I want to start with a question that may seem very obvious to you, but not obvious to people outside of Indonesia. Can you describe your organization for listeners outside of Indonesia?
Kami adalah organisasi yang bersifat kedaerahan yang mengangkat kearifan lokal masyarakat Betawi.
We are local organization in Jakarta, and we work to preserve the local wisdoms of the Betawi community.
How do you do that?
Betulnya lebih fokus pada seni dan budaya masyarakat Betawi.
We're focusing on the art and culture of the Betawi community. As you know, Betawi community is the native community of Jakarta, and Jakarta is a capital of Republic of Indonesia. Jakarta is a home of complex and heterogeneous community, and we are worried that this type of dynamics in Jakarta threaten the local wisdom of the Betawi community. Such a urban culture that is hedonistic, pragmatical, and disregarding towards Betawi community.
Can you give some examples of how you protect Betawi people from hedonism?
Masyarakat Betawi itu adalah masyarakat yang religius, yang senantiasa mengedepankan nilai-nilai agama.
Betawi community is a religious community. We put forward religious values and the values of gotong royong, of working together, of helping each other, and also the values of piety, which are similar to local culture of other communities in Indonesia. And at the moment, with the influence of metropolitan culture, such values diminish. Children, they usually in the past before dawn, they have gathered at home and do the prayer at the masjid and recite the Quran, and it has been diminishing gradually. I can see that the togetherness, the gotong royong of Betawi community began to decrease, and also the way we care about people around us. In the past, we see that social life is relatively healthy, but with the coming of urban culture that is more individualistic, the life of the people are becoming, unhealthy. They do not know each other anymore. In the past, even when we lived far away from each other, we still know each other. We know the parents, we know the children, but now with the impact of urban culture and science and technology and also social media, I'm afraid that we are looking at the fall of the Betawi culture.
Kehidupan sosial masyarakat Betawi mulai mengalami keruntuhan sedikit demi sedikit.
So it's accurate to describe you as a guardian of Betawi culture.
Mungkin terlalu hiperbola ya kalau dianggap saya penjaga. Saya mungkin bagian dari di antara orang-orang itu. Sedikit yang bisa kita lakukan.
It's too much to call me the guardian of Betawi culture, but I do feel like I am part of those who are taking care of Betawi culture, just doing whatever I can.
Namun kami kan tidak kaku ya.
If I may add, you see, we are not as strict. We have the principle of safeguarding old values that we think is good and adopting new values that we think are better. You see why we have to preserve local wisdom. It is important so that we have identity. Betawi people said that if we only take things from outside and throw away what we have, our identity, then we will not be rooted. It will be easy for us to be taken away by the waves, and we are unable to give meaning to our life. And sometimes it also contributes to what we see phenomenon these days, young people who are trapped in fundamentalism, and it can be very dangerous. There are many instances these days. There are children, young people who were not religious when they were younger. They do not have a very strong religious basis. And then once they experience traumatic situations, then they turn to religion, they turn to spiritual guidance. But then sometimes they follow the wrong path. They follow this religious path that is more exclusive and that makes them think that other people are sinful and that they are always right. And I think this is what we have to be very aware of.
If I could just ask, though, it's not clear to me from your standpoint, how do you enforce efforts to maintain culture and prevent extremism?
Sebelumnya saya ingin katakan bahwa di samping religius, budaya Betawi adalah juga budaya egalitarian.
I would like to also share with you that in addition to being religious, Betawi culture is an egalitarian culture. We can live together with anyone at all. There are many communities where the head of the RT, the neighborhood associations, is Javanese, and the head of the RW is Bataknese, and they live together peacefully, working together with each other. However, lately, with the massive use of social media, we saw that there has been increasing of conflict. The social life begins to see signs of being unhealthy, easy to be provoked, especially with SARA issues, ethnicity, race, religion types of issues. As you know, the FBR, even though it is a Betawi organization and it is a Muslim majority organization, but we welcome members from all 5 religions acknowledged in Indonesia. We also have a board member who is Catholic, and we treat our members equally. When there is our Christian or Catholic member passed away, for instance, so we participate in the funeral and vice versa. We are fully aware that Jakarta is heterogeneous and there are many conflict of interest happening. What we are trying to do and prevent to the best of our capability is to prevent conflict based on religious sentiment. Because based on our experience, if it is a common social conflict, then we can solve it in a day or 3 days maximum. But if the conflict is based on religious sentiment, then it's going to be endless. The impact can be very, very long and endless. That's why our focus is really to prevent such conflict.
It sounds to me, Kyai, then that you would probably take opposition to the description of your organization as being ormas, as being an alliance with Preman. That your organization is often described as one that sells protection. Do you agree with that description?
Meskipun banyak tuduhan-tuduhan miring terhadap kami, karena memang kami sadari anggota kami itu bukan, kalau bahasa guyonan kita itu, bukan orang yang sering kepentok tiang masjid gitu. Tapi orang-orang yang boleh dibilang jauh dari masjid, yang mungkin orang sebut mereka preman.
I'm fully aware that there are many accusations, many prejudices against us. We are fully aware that our members are those who are not coming to masjid often. We joke that our members are not those who got hit by the pillar of the mosque very often. We sometimes call them as Preman. But what I would like to emphasize is that this is a part of teaching Islam, or the da'wah, part of teaching Islam to these people. And da'wah takes times and takes persistence as well. No, we did not deny that there are members who put forward their Preman side, and that lead people to generalize or to stereotype FBR as a Preman organization. But on the other hand, we also have this concept of safeguarding our kampung, because in reality, we see that Jakarta often is the locations of demonstrations, of rallies from various groups from across Indonesia, because this is the center of the government. Sometimes they're coming from different parts of the country, and it's legitimate for them to show their aspiration. However, sometimes, based on our experience, sometimes they can get very anarchical and destroy our kampung. What we would like to share is that each of us are welcome to criticize the government's policy, but don't be anarchistic and don't destroy our place where we live, our kampung. So yeah, some of our members identify themselves as Preman, but again, it's part of the da'wah, and it takes time to embrace them into being more religious, but at the same time, they are also, securing our kampung.
And it's also a common feature for mass organizations to provide employment, very often to young men who have come to the city, and they seek help from organizations like yours. Is that fair to say?
Kalau kami tidak menyediakan atau menjadi jasa untuk orang-orang yang mencari kerja. Biasanya itu hanya untuk anggota FBR.
FBR is not providing jobs, but we have businesses established in my place, and we have many people in our kampung. There are also members of FBR who live there in the kampung, and they want to have decent living as well, decent income. And what we witness is that those who are accepted or employed in that business or factories are, coming from outside. Whereas in our location where the factories is established, people of the kampung too would like to have decent income. So that is why we demand for the businesses to prioritize our people for as long as it matches the qualification. So what we would like to prevent is that factories, for instance, established in our area, but recruiting from across Indonesia or from across Jakarta, but then many of our people remain unemployed. That will create some sort of jealousy that will turn into social conflict that will impact badly, really, for the life of the people in Jakarta in specific, and also in the country. And so that's basically, for as long as we meet the qualification, why not, hiring from us?
I take your point, and I understand that, and your methods are not unique to Indonesia. These methods are employed around the world. But I think that the concern is that your tactics very often require or include violence. And I say that because there have been a number of instances in Tangerang, around where the airport is in North Jakarta, where members of your organization have clashed with rival organizations, Pemuda Pancasila, for example, and there have been a number of injuries and arrests. And the police have brought peace of a sort for now, but these clashes are ongoing. Do you, as a religious official, disavow, denounce? Are you prepared to denounce the use of violence in order to achieve your aims?
Baik, pertama bahwa kekerasan itu tidak berkaitan dengan lapangan pekerjaan ya. Biasanya kami hanya melakukan unjuk rasa.
I would like to emphasize that violence is never related to employment. You know, we usually organize peaceful rally, so non-violence rally to bring attention of the business and of the factories established in our kampung. So we don't use violence. Now, with regards to the clash between FBR and other organizations, we are fully aware that conflict exists, and we cannot see it as simple as this is initiated by FBR. There are things that we couldn't understand probably that underlies these conflicts. Us as the executives of FBR have been trying very hard, relentlessly, to minimize conflict. We organize trainings, we organize, socializations, we do activities together with other organizations. But again, conflict happens. Now, what I can tell you is that at the beginning, it can be a personal one. So it's not a conflict between ormas. But to gain more support, persons who are in conflict with each other bring their ormas identity with them. Now, this is the weakness of what we call the spirit of Korsa, the spirit of brotherhood, that one brother will help another brother that needs help. Now, there are many benefits to this spirit of brotherhood, but then the negative side is that whenever there is a conflict between individual and that individual seek help from their brothers then help them, and it fuels the conflicts and make it even bigger. But we are aware of this, and we are trying to the best of our capability until today to minimize conflicts.
Thank you for that, Kyai. I'm sure you know where this interview is driving, and I'm going to arrive at the point now. And it's that the chief of police has opened up the door for organizations like yours to help in enforcing lockdown measures, helping to enforce closures of non-essential businesses and measures to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, which causes COVID-19. For example, using masks and social distancing and the like. Given the fact that your organization, as you say, can include those whose heads have not been hit by the pillars of masjid, which I think is a very charming way of saying that, and as well as those that may harbor resentment for rival groups. Do you think it's appropriate that organizations such as yours should be included in those enforcement measures?
Saya kira apa yang dilakukan oleh Polri untuk melibatkan ormas di dalam penegakan PSBB sudah tepat. Mungkin hanya perlu aturan-aturan yang ketat ya, di mana keberadaan ormas di situ hanya membantu. Karena dia membantu aparat, maka yang dibutuhkan adalah keteladanan, bukan penegakan aturan, bukan pemberian sanksi atau hukuman-hukuman lain.
What the chief of police has done to engage ormas, it's a good decision. It's an appropriate decision. However, it requires a more strict rules and regulation. what we need to emphasize is that the responsibility of Ormas is to assist police officer or the public officials. So what Ormas should show is a role model. It's not about law enforcement, but about being a role model. It's about setting example. It's about being persuasive. It's about implementing the health protocol with example, leading with example, not with arrogance. What we emphasize to our member is that don't be arrogant. Don't ever think that just because you are backed up by the police or that you are supported by the police, then you can do or against regulations. I don't think that it is our responsibility to give sanction, even though we have the law backing us up. My focus is for our members to show leadership so that people will see, even though some of us look scary, we are leading with example. We don't have to participate in law enforcement. What we need to do is to lead by example.
What happens if members of your organization are found to have taken the laws into their own hands and taken advantage of their authority? What sort of oversight will there be?
Ya, kami akan memberikan sanksi terhadap anggota yang berbuat demikian.
We are definitely going to give sanction to members that take the law into their own advantage and also abuse their position as a volunteer. I would like to emphasize to you, as a volunteer of the task force to enforce PSBB. In addition to sanction, what we will do is that we will withdraw that particular person and we will change it with other members of our organizations who able to translate the vision of our organizations with regards to PSBB.
I guess that the problem there is the asymmetry of power. How can a simple shop owner be assured his or her complaint will be taken seriously without a retribution? Yours is the biggest organization of its kind in the capital. And making a promise that you will take the complaint seriously, it's hard to believe that. It's easy to believe, it's easier to see that a person would be very scared and that all the power would rest in your hands.
Iya Bu, selama ini kami juga menerima aduan-aduan masyarakat dan saya pun banyak memecat anggota-anggota yang indisipliner.
We do receive complaints. We welcome complaint and grievances. I fire members committing indisciplinary act, not only regular member. We have a core executives member of FBR. If they are committing violations against the principle of organization, we will give sanction. And it happens in Sunter. I told my fellow members of FBR that street vendors, especially in the situations of COVID, they need to be supported. They need to be able to eat, maybe not 3 times a day, but at least we cannot leave them hungry. So we need to help them. We need to prevent them from, being hungry, from being, unable to eat. Especially many of them are borrowing the capital from moneylenders, local rentenir, we call it.
Yeah.
Then we are going to try to help them with the weekly due or daily due to that particular rentenir during the period of PSBB. That is the principle that we are trying to really make all of our members aware of.
I have, I guess, one last question. And I was hoping that maybe I could just bounce my idea off you and help me to understand the role of your organizations in Indonesia. And I've always felt that Preman and Ormas do the work that the government can't. They provide the law enforcement and the support and the social support where the social services are inadequate. Basically, you are left in some ways in Indonesia and in Jakarta in particular to fend for yourself, to fend for your own community because of the failings of the state. Is that a fair description of your organization and Preman?
Saya sepakat. Boleh dibilang bahwa pemerintah dalam hal ini mandul untuk bisa berdayakan masyarakat. Sementara ketika terjadi hal-hal yang tidak diinginkan, hanya melulu ormas.
I can say that the government in this case, they cannot do anything to empower the community. Whereas whenever something bad happens, then they are accusing ormas. They are again and again blaming ormas. Whereas in reality, they never do assistance, facilitation to us. For me, my principle is that akhlak or good deeds is not only, being responsible for your, for instance, wife and children, those who are under your guardianship, your responsibility, but being responsible for something beyond, something that is also not directly related to you. And so I agree with you. There are many things that governments cannot handle, and they need to be aware of this in order not to always blame ormas, when in reality, they never give us operational costs, empowerment, facilitation, budget. They never give such support to us, but they blame us whenever something went wrong.
Kyai, thank you so much for talking with me. I have learned a lot from our conversation. And that's the program. Thanks to Kyai Luthfi Hakim of the FBR. Our producer is Stephen Handoko. Translation by Satya Marush. Research by Imam Shofwan. Music by Soundstripe. If you like us, please rate us. It helps. As always, if you want to contact us, we're on Instagram on the level _podcast. I'm Jeff Hutton. Bye for now.